In the last video, we discussed how various cross-sections of the cone may be constructed. So, in this video, we shall now talk about their graphs and equations. Well, this is the general form of conics, and here these all are constants out of which a, b, c, d and e are coefficients of x square, xy, y square, x and y respectively. Now we are basically curious to study the equation of various conic sections. So the equation of different conic sections are totally dependent upon the values of a and c. So the different values of a and c would produce equation of different conic sections. Let's first talk about circles. Well, this is the general form of conics. Now the question is, how can we deduce the equation of circle from it? So to get the equation of circle, the values of a and c should be same and b is 0, where the signs of a and c should also be same. So for instance, if I take the values of a and c is 1, then we get the general form of equation of circle. That is the general form of equation of circle if we take the values of a and c equals to 1. Now let's learn about the standard form of this circle. Now what is the standard form of this circle and how can we get that form? So if we complete the squares in x and y in the general form of the circle, then the equation becomes in the standard form. So this is the standard form of the circle. Now this is the graph of the circle, and here h and k are the coordinates of center of the circle. Here h is the x coordinate of the center of the circle and k is the y coordinate of the center of the circle. Now here r is the distance between the center of the circle and different points of the circle. So r is the radius of the circle. Now what is a unit circle? Well, now let's talk about unit circle. So how can we get a unit circle? If h and k both takes the value 0, then the circle would shift to the origin, and if the radius of the circle becomes 1, then the circle we obtain is referred to as unit circle. So the equation of unit circle is x squared plus y squared is equal to 1. Well, that's all for this part. Now let's talk about another cross section of the cone. Now, how can we produce the equation of ellipse from it? So, if here the values of a and c are different with same sign, then the equation we get is would be the equation of an ellipse. So now let's talk about the standard form of ellipse. So this is the standard form of the ellipse, where a is the length of horizontal axis of the ellipse, that is a would be parallel to x-axis, and b is the length of the vertical axis of ellipse, so it means b would be parallel to y-axis, and here h and k is the center of this. Now let's learn something about the graph of the ellipse. So here we are uh, going to learn about the graph of ellipse with a is greater than b. It means the length of the major axis would be a and the length of the minor axis would be. So here, as a is the denominator of the term x, so now here the major axis would be along x-axis and minor axis would be along b-axis. So here it is the coordinate axis and this is the center of the ellipse. A is the length of the major axis and here B is the length of the minor axis. So here it is the ellipse whose major axis is along x-axis. Now let's move toward the ellipse which has a less than b. So here the minor axis would be along x-axis and with the length a, and major axis would be along y-axis with the length b. So here it is the coordinate axis. This is the center of the ellipse. So here now the major axis is along y-axis and minor axis is parallel to x-axis. So here we have ellipse along y-axis. Now if h and k takes the value 0, then the center of the ellipse would shift to the origin and it would have this equation: x squared divided by a squared plus y squared divided by b squared is equal to 1. Well, that ends this section. So let's now study about parabola. Let's explore the equation of parabola. So how can we extract the equation from the regular form of the conics? So if we have a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0, that is one of the quadratic term vanishes, then it becomes the equation of parabola. Let's now discuss the main features of the graph of parabola. So this is parabola, which is just like U, not like U, it's like alphabet U. And this vertical line is the vertical axis or axis of symmetry of the parabola. Now, what is the axis of symmetry? So, axis of symmetry basically divides the graph into two reflecting parts or two reflecting graphs. So now here the intersecting point of the parabola and axis of symmetry is vertex. Let's now discuss about different types of parabolas. So first we are going to discuss about the parabolas with horizontal axis of symmetry. So here you can see in both the equations the quadratic term is y and the linear term is x. Now here a is the distance between the focal point and the vertex of the parabola, and h and k is the coordinate of vertex. So now you can see here this parabola is opening to the right. So here in the equation there is positive sign with the linear part of the equation. Now you can see here this parabola opens to the left. So here there is a negative sign with the linear part of the equation. Let's have a look at the parabolas with vertical axis of symmetry. Now here you can see in both the equations the quadratic term is x and the linear term is y. Now here the parabola opens upward, and if we look at its equation, there is positive sign with the linear part of the parabola, and this parabola opens downward, and in the equation there is negative sign with the linear part of the equation. Now let's see what is the standard form of the parabola. So the standard form of the parabola is basically are the parabolas whose vertex is at origin, that is the values of h and k is 0. So here it is the parabola which opens upward. This is the parabola opens downward. And this one is the parabola, it opens to the right. And this one is parabola opens to the left. Well, it ends this part. Now let's have a look at some key features of equation and graph of hyperbola. Now here we are looking for the equation of hyperbola. So here if A and C has opposite signs, then it becomes the equation of hyperbola. So there are two different equations of hyperbola. In first equation, A has positive sign and C has negative sign, and in the second equation, A has negative and C has positive sign. So now let's see what is the difference between these two equations. So here is the first equation of hyperbola. So its standard form is like this, and you can see it really resembles with the equation of ellipse. In the ellipse, both the term has same signs, and in the hyperbola, both the terms has opposite signs. So here it is the graph of hyperbola with the center hk. So here h and k represents the center of the hyperbola. Now in the graph you can see this vertical line is the conjugate axis and this horizontal line is the transverse axis, and these 2 points are the focal points of the hyperbola, and these 2 points are the vertices of the hyperbola. So here you can see the one parabola opens to the right and the other opens to the left. Now let's take a look at the second equation of hyperbola. So here you can see the difference that here A has negative sign and C has positive sign, and in the standard form the term which contains y has positive sign and the term with x has negative sign. So in the graph you can see the basic difference is that now here the one parabola opens downward and the other parabola opens upward. So here that concludes this section. I hope you become familiar with the fundamental elements of equations and graphs for various conic sections.